Hi there, good to have you back on the White Change channel. I'm Yulia Kasarenko. Today we will talk about a very important question, especially since the COVID pandemic. This question is about managing remote workshops and virtual meetings. Business analysts must be skilled facilitators. They lead discovery sessions, requirements meetings, problem solving, modeling workshops. It's often challenging and it requires a lot of your emotional energy and significant effort to prepare. It's even more challenging in a remote environment. This is why you should definitely expect a question about facilitating virtual meetings at your job interview. It may go like this. How would you facilitate a virtual requirements workshop? How do you usually prepare for a remote workshop? What facilitation tools do you use? Or what are your strategies for keeping stakeholders engaged in a long requirement session? To answer these questions, your best preparation is the actual experience of remote facilitation. It may not be a requirement session, but just about any virtual meeting can benefit from the same techniques as we would apply to business analysis workshops. Have you ever participated in a virtual meeting? Most likely. Have you ever led one? Most of us have, even if it was a small team huddle or a status update, or even a meeting you've scheduled with your manager to provide them with a report on your latest assignment. Some key advice applies to any meeting. Having a clear agenda, objectives, preparing materials in advance. These are just the basics. We need to do this regardless of the meeting format, virtual or face-to-face. Some other aspects need more emphasis when the meeting is remote. For example, who do you invite? In virtual meetings, managing large groups is more challenging. So if you plan to analyze a difficult problem, you may need to minimize the number of participants to only those that will play an active part. Taking turns sometimes is tricky. Imagine having a virtual argument then. On the other hand, virtual meetings allow to easily create recordings, which means that anybody who doesn't have to contribute but needs to stay informed can simply watch the recording or part of it later. So planning who needs to attend, whether you will be recording, sharing the recordings and all the materials is a facilitator's job. But of course, the most important job is the running of the meeting itself. And that's what you need to describe as well when you answer this question. You have to manage those who are speaking or presenting. You need to define speaking order, manage resolving questions, make sure everybody who has something to say is able to contribute. You have to make it easy for everyone to see what's happening, to keep up with it. You have to capture the discussion visibly to everyone and facilitate making decisions. How exactly do you do that? You use both the tools and your skills. The tools are your video conferencing applications, Teams, Slack, Zoom, WebEx, or whatever you're working with. You have to know their features, how to mute and unmute participants, share screens effectively, use chats, polls, whiteboards, etc. to engage participation. On the other hand, you have to watch and listen all the time. You will need to learn to read face language, since most of the body language will not be visible to you. Is everyone still listening? Keeping track of the discussion? Are you getting responses? Are people chatting with each other and ignoring you? How would you bring them back? Is the meeting making progress? Is everyone stuck on some point? Is every one voice overpowering everyone else? Do you need to redirect the meeting? It may sound scary, but you just have to learn how to do it. And to learn it, you have to experience and practice it. If you're not yet a business analyst, practice taking turns running your team meetings. It doesn't matter what your team does. Have best practice sharing huddles or new skill learning workshops. By the way, try to facilitate a family reunion online. Sometimes this can be as much of a challenge as facilitating a requirements workshop. Now, in your interview, focus on how you would do this efficiently. How do you get everyone to speak? How do you use screen share to make your discussion visible? How do you check for questions, agreement, or confusion? And don't forget things facilitators do after the meeting, such as recap, notes, action items, and an agreement about the next meetings. Of course, adapt your answer to the question that was asked. As always, remember to listen to the question carefully and answer the right question. Being a good facilitator is such a valuable skill, and your interviewer will likely place significant weight on how you answer this question. So practice. watch learning videos, and observe how other people do it who can do it well. And finally, remember that your interview itself, your job interview itself, is also a test of your facilitation skills. Use it to smooth out any awkward moments, offer additional information if your interviewer is stuck. Ask them good questions if you want to clarify their question or if you need more information. Are you still anxious? After you're done watching this video, why don't you schedule a virtual meeting with a few people, friends or co-workers, and try to run it efficiently. Then write down lessons learned, what worked well and what didn't, and practice again. With this, we will wrap up for today. I'm Yulia Kosarenko. Best of luck in your next meeting facilitation. Take care.